Hola a todos, bienvenidos a Spanish Series en UNM. Hoy tenemos el honor de contar con la presentación del doctor José Esteban Hernández. Él es profesor en UT Rio Grande Valley, pero él en Edinburgh, Texas, pero él también estudió y es graduado de UNM. También su estudiante Perla Luengo está aquí presente y ambos van a presentar en inglés y en español sobre un corpus de Centroamérica. El doctor José Esteban Hernández se enfoca en la investigación de contacto de dialectos y algunas otras cosas que usted nos puede mencionar, doctor José Esteban. Bienvenido.
Bueno,
Les-
primero que nada, gracias a todos por estar aquí en viernes. Yo sé que el viernes lo usamos para, al menos yo, para ir a tomar café o algo, pero gracias porque están aquí con nosotros. Y también, obviamente, gracias a Brisa y a Marty por hacer estas charlas tan buenas para todos nosotros que nos interesa la lingüística y otros temas como han presentado, ¿no? Creo que ya van más allá de la lingüística, es la lengua en general. Pero mil gracias para nosotros, creo que es un honor. Creo que Perla estaría de acuerdo en que es un honor. Y claro que también decir que tuve la suerte hace unos años de conocer a Brisa y a Marty, que me parecen unas personas tan dinámicas y tan activas y que están aquí, están allá, hoy están en Irlanda, mañana en Guinea Ecuatorial y otro día puede que estén, no sé, en Edinburgh, no sé, pero me parece que ese tipo de estudiantes siempre nos mantienen, they keep us on our toes, ¿no? Tenemos que estar a la par con ellos, seguirles el ritmo a ellos, pero mil gracias a todos por estar aquí. Y lo que voy a hacer hoy, debo decirlo que no es algo tan, tan teórico, es más bien contar mi experiencia y creo que Perla también teníamos la idea de contar nuestra experiencia con este corpus que estamos trabajando. Em, entonces, quiero compartir, creo que ya puedo compartir lo que hicimos.
Sí, creo que sí puede compartir pantalla. Ah, sí, ahí vemos que se está. Perfecto.
Entonces, mm, ahí está. Entonces, básicamente lo que quiero hacer es hablarles de mi experiencia y la experiencia inicial con el corpus, porque de ninguna manera es algo ya terminado, es algo que está empezando apenas. Tengo 2 semestres, tenemos 2 semestres trabajando en esto y realmente quiero que escuchen lo que hemos hecho y lo que estamos pensando hacer para un futuro. Ujú. Entonces el título es Building a Linguistic Corpus, Shared Experiences in the Initial Stages of the Process. And I mean, this is really initial stages of the process. Y conmigo va a presentar Perla Luengo, a quien ya mencioné, y Erika García, que es originalmente parte de la presentación, pero por cuestiones personales, Erika no va a poder estar con nosotros, desafortunadamente, pero no está físicamente, pero en solidaridad está aquí con nosotros, ¿no? Ok, entonces, sí, básicamente lo que dijimos es que vamos a estar, we will be talking about our experience in the initial stages of building what we're calling the Central American corpus. It's a linguistic corpus of Central American spoken data. This is our goal, to create a corpus of linguistic data from Central America. Mhm. I wanted to start by talking a little bit about, very general, about what is a corpus. Um, and I can talk a little bit about why the name Central American American. When I type the name Central American American in Word always tells me that that is wrong. But no, it's not a mistake. That's why we're calling it Central American American, um, to reflect the experience of Central American Americans in the U.S., especially the linguistic experience of this community. So a corpus is basically a collection of speech samples that recreate the speech pattern in a specific community. At least that's what we want to think, that when we're doing this collection of speech samples, that we're kind of recreating what it's out there in the community that we choose, whether it's a very specific and small community or whether it's a community like the Central American community, which is rather large. So basically, this is our target, the Central American communities. So it's a collection of speech samples, which we think should be representative of the Central American varieties that are spoken in the southern part of the state of Texas. At least this is what we would like to think, that what we're gathering here is representative of what we would find in the state of Texas. And obviously there are challenges here. There are limitations to these, and we can talk about these, and probably you will have a lot of questions about this at the end. But at least ideally, we would like to think that these speech samples would be representative of these community. And so this includes samples of Spanish from the communities, although we know that these are highly bilingual communities, depending on the generation of the person that we are interviewing. And so the corpus doesn't really look for a specific modality. It depends on the modality that the interviewer speaks and also on the modalities that the interviewee might speak. So the hope is that we can recreate all those modalities that are present in the communities. Okay, and I would believe that you are also thinking about other issues that may arise in a community like the Central American community, which is a Latino community within other Latino, larger Latino communities. So basically, we think that the corpus that, or any corpus, not only the corpus that we're working on, would seek to account for variation that is found in language use. There are many corpora available. Obviously, you may know some of these, and you have very good examples coming out of New Mexico. Some of those are open corpora, but others are not. I know that Richard is there, and Richard has corpora from Colombia, and I know that people in the past in UNM have worked with different communities within the state. So you guys have very good examples there of corpora, both public or open and personal corpora. And so in a way, I feel that it may be a little bit hard talking about this to somebody that I believe are experts on some of these topics. Okay, but anyway, one of the first questions that I had when I was working with the Central American corpora is, do I really need to create a corpus of Central American varieties? And the answer was yes, obviously for several reasons. First, I believe that there is a growing presence of Central Americans, and I always thought that the presence of Central Americans in the US was a recent phenomena, and it is a recent phenomena if we think about large numbers of people from Central America immigrating to the US because of economic or because of hardship or because of conflict. But according to Ana Patricia Rodriguez, the Central American presence in the U.S., it's a very long presence, especially in specific areas of the U.S. She basically talks about Baltimore. I'm sorry, I don't have the bibliography, but I can provide that if anybody needs that, okay? So basically, she says that the Central American presence in areas like Baltimore, Washington, D.C., and New Orleans are it's a very old presence there. But we also have more recent presence of Central Americans in the U.S., and I would say a more widespread presence of Central Americans in the US, mainly because of the conflicts that arose during the 1980s and 1990s in the Central American Isthmus. So we have a growing demographics of Central Americans, specifically today. And just focusing on South Texas, I was really surprised of what I found when I started this project, because I always thought of the Central American presence in South Texas as a presence of mainly Salvadorans, which is the community that I work with the most. But once I started doing the project and once my students started also interviewing people, I found that there is a large, for example, Garifuna community in Houston, that there is a large Nicaraguan community in areas of Austin and San Antonio. Um, and so there is a larger presence that goes beyond um, Salvadorans, and the demographics point to a growing community. Whether that is changing now with current issues, that's another that's probably something that we need to start investigating. But yeah, there's I mean it's an important community within the South Texas area, and I will talk about what we mean by South Texas specifically in relation to the Central American corpus. Along with that growing demographic, there's what I believe a scarcity of scholarships, especially when we start talking about language. Obviously, there is much more scholarship now, especially in language. When we then when I started working, when I started doing my first research with Salvadorans. That must have been around 2002. So there is a lot of work. There's a lot more work now working with different Central American communities across the US, which is, I mean, I think it's a good thing because it adds a lot about what we know of these communities linguistically and what happens when they come to the US and they start communicating with other communities. So there is a lot of interest, a growing interest in that. I believe Marty, who is, I don't see him here, has also done something on dialect contact. At least I saw him present a couple of years ago, I believe in San Antonio. I may be wrong. But I mean, that shows that there is that interest even in areas like Albuquerque. Okay. Um, Also, one of the reasons why I decided that this was important is because there is an availability of open or semi-open corpora that deal with Latinos in the US. A lot of them focus in Mexican American data, but I mean, there are very, very diverse in the different, I mean, at least in the Southwest, a lot of them are obviously, for obvious reasons, focus on Mexican American data. But we also have corpora in the East that focus on other communities. But I don't know of a corpus that focuses specifically, at least open or semi-open, which is the goal of my project at the end, to make this available in a semi-open modality. So there's not much that I know that deals with Central American communities, Central American communities. Okay. And the other thing is that I believe that even though my focus is on linguistics, I think that a lot of the interviews that we're conducting say a lot about the Central American experience in the US. So there's not only the linguistic, the meta-linguistic, there's also a lot of history, a lot of personal experiences that are passed on when we start talking to these people. Some of them are very hard, others are more some of them are very, some of them are stories of success, others are stories of struggles. But I mean, they do reflect the American experience uh, very, in a very, in a lot of ways. in a lot of ways. So I think that the answer to my question is a definite yes. It is an important project that someone has to take on. And obviously, in a way, I think that I hope to encourage other people to do something similar in other places of the U.S., obviously. Okay? A little bit of demographics. I'm not going to go a lot into that, but just so you can see, for example, Salvadorans, the number of immigrants, and this table, I should give credit to my students. It comes from one of the projects that they did. But it is, as you can see, it is a growing population. Okay, some of the key considerations in building a corpus, specifically this corpus. Well, I wanted to create this accessibility of data in the future. Like I say, this is only the beginning. We're in the collecting stages. But obviously, I want at some point to have this accessibility to other colleagues, other scholars working on Central American topics. My idea is that people or colleagues can have these corpus available to do different types of linguistic analysis, obviously, but also meta-linguistic analysis, linguistics about ideologies, about attitudinal issues, which we are in a way recording through a survey that I will show in a minute. And obviously a record of the times. I mean, recording the times that these communities are experiencing, it's also important. And like I say, a representation, I said previously, a representation. Hope that this is a representation of the communities in this period of time. I also hope that this creates some representativeness of the varieties. I mean, we're trying to make sure that the corpus covers a broad range of genres, whether it be narratives, whether it be dialogue, whether it be monologues, etc. We hope that everything is there. Contexts and registers, some of them are formal, some of them are informal. Obviously, this has to do a lot with the interviewers, with the interviewees themselves. But we hope that this is, in a way, um, present in the um, in the interviews. I mean, and a lot of these, I try to guarantee through different types of training with the students. But at the end, it all comes back to context, where the students did this interview. Do they know the person or not? Are these friends? Are these family? Are these somebody that they just met, etc.? The other thing I hope that, or we hope that this is representative of age, different sex, gender, the professions, generations, family units. One of the things that the students have been finding out is that, at least here in the valley, in the border, is that family units have these they've been interviewing family units. In other words, they interview the dad, then they interview the mom, maybe the children. And so I think this is new, because if somebody wants to do like intergenerational um, analysis of the data, it can be done because we have several family units that we have recorded. Okay. Um, Okay, as long as the defined scope of the corpus, we had to decide at the beginning whether we wanted to do spoken versus the written forms of the language, and we don't have anything in written form. All we have is spoken. As far as the specific regional dialects or social contexts, what we're doing is basically we're at this moment we're interviewing anyone we can access. We're not focusing on specific regional dialects. Something that I have been doing is that at least in my personal experience, I have been looking for these communities that have not been represented widely within Central America. Like I said before, I'm focusing a lot on finding Garifuna people in Houston, or finding Nicaraguans, which I think, if we think that Central Americans within the Latino community have had very few representation in the scholarship, I think that within Central Americans, these communities like the Garifuna or the Nicaraguans have received very, very little, much less than these than other Central American regions. So I'm focusing a lot on those regional dialects, those regional communities. As far as the targeted populations, like language learners or professionals, we're basically interviewing anybody that we can have access to, specifically here in the border, because it's a smaller community. But I think we have found, for example, language learners. We haven't found language learners, but the students usually come to me and say, this person that I will interview is a third generation Central America, or it's a second generation Central America. He wasn't born in Central America. Can I interview him? Or he speaks mostly English and Spanglish. Can I interview him? And obviously the answer is yes. Our target population is very general. So yes, anybody who claims some type of attachment to ideological attachment to the community can be interviewed. Participants, anybody who was born in Central America or who has a father, mother, grandfather, or grandfather who was born in Central America can participate. And like I say, some of the interviewers that the students have done have been in English, because they have found third generation Central America who do not speak Spanish or who speaks very little Spanish. They're mainly heritage learners. Maybe some of them passive bilinguals. Okay, so we're trying to maintain clear about the objective of the corpus, which is to incorporate anyone uh, who claims some type of identity with Central America. Okay, oops, this is the area that we're focusing on. Anything between Houston, San Antonio, and Brownsville, McAllen. Anyone that we can find there, we will interview. So it's a very general idea of what South Texas is for us. A lot of the interviews that I have done have been in Houston, mainly because I have previous contacts there. And so it is easier for me to do it in Houston, but the students have worked mainly in this area. And here, the students they found people of Central American origin in a lot of places that I hadn't thought that I wouldn't think about having Central American families in. And also, like Perla, who will be talking a little bit in a few minutes, has done some interviews also in Reynosa, because there's also transmigrantes in Reynosa. So she has worked with transmigrantes in Reynosa, mainly women transmigrantes in Reynosa. But she will tell you more about her experience in a minute. As far as collecting the data, and I'm running out of time, so maybe I'll just talk a little bit more and then let Perla talk. But as far as collecting the data, where we're hoping that we collect reliable language samples, real life everyday sources. Interviews are done for spoken language. We're using a diverse range of speakers, contexts, and settings. Like I say, some of these are not necessarily planned. That's what the students can interview. We have metadata, we have biographic data and linguistic agitational data. Mainly, we're using the demographic information of the participant. It's an adaptation of Carvalho 2012, and we're using the BLP, Bilingual Language Proficiency, from Birdsong, Taken, and Amengual 2012. So the references are there. I won't talk so much about this, but these are some of the things that the students have together, that I have together when I interview someone. And the bilingual language proficiency profile It's about 6 pages long, and it's an adaptation. In both cases, it's an adaptation because most of the work that I've done before with Central Americans, or a lot of the work that I've done with Central American, has to do with dialect context. So obviously, I changed some of the questions that had to do with language contact to reflect more the dialect contact in the community. A little bit of both language contact and dialect contact. So yes, I did. Added some questions, and so it's more of an adaptation, especially the part about the attitudinal issues. Okay, just so that you know. And as far as the interviewers, those that participated in the collection of linguistic samples received the training required by the university, which is the city mainly. There was a lot of classroom preparation to acquire greater sociolinguistic knowledge with conducting interviews and collecting demographic data. This was very important. We provided they were provided with discussions on theory of language ideologies and their speakers, mainly because some of them um, uh, see these communities in their daily lives, because this is South Texas is an area of transit for a lot of these communities. And in a way, students have, some students that come into the class don't have very positive uh, ideas, or very positive attitudes about the communities and the languages that they speak. But through discussions, I usually try to to talk about these problems and make students aware of the problematic with these communities. So we train interviewers who were informed and sensitive to the diverse, to be informed and sensitive to the diverse linguistic modalities, characters in the communities, and to inform interviewers about some of the problems that affect the target community. At least I I believe that through these discussions, students change their perceptions a lot. Uh, the data collection is usually a rewarding experience for the interviewer for several reasons. I believe that the perceptions are changed once they talk to the people, and once they become informed about Central American migration arriving in the border regions. Okay. At the moment, we have 85 interviewers. In the spring semester, we collected 85 interviewers. We had 42 interviewers and 85 participants from Belize, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Panama. Even though the great majority of the persons that we were able to interview come from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, like I said. And in a way, I'm focusing on those other countries that, in Houston mainly, those other countries that are not as represented in the border. And the students in two of my classes are working this semester on gathering more interviews. And then now, Perla, I want to give her the following
Ex-
15 minutes so that she can talk about her experience and
Ok.
stop sharing. I don't know if you want to share something, Perla.
No, yo
Okay.
solo compartiré mi
Okay.
experiencia que la tengo muy, parece que clara. Bueno, muy buenas tardes, mi nombre es Perla Luengo, soy estudiante del doctor Hernández, estoy estudiando la maestría en UTRGV. Este, Bueno, me interesa mucho compartir mi experiencia antes y después, porque creo que sí marcó para mí un antes y después y me hizo darme cuenta de mis propios prejuicios lingüísticos. Creciendo en la frontera y viviendo la frontera y teniendo relación con la migración constante, pues de alguna manera como que se vuelve abstracta el vivirlo diario y no y obviamente cargada y atravesada por estereotipos a lo mejor negativos y pues obviamente eso cambió después de hacer las entrevistas. Eh, Tenía conocimiento de las diferencias que podía haber léxicas, pragmáticas, pero pues nunca había tenido un contexto real y un acercamiento. Cuando el doctor Hernández nos propuso hacer entrevistas, pues yo consideré pues es lo más fácil que hay, conseguir viviendo en la frontera. Me imagino que iba a haber muchas oportunidades, pero me encontré primero con que era difícil encontrar, y más por el contexto que estamos viviendo en el día de hoy. La gente tenía mucho miedo para participar en esas entrevistas. Primero fui a restaurantes salvadoreños para preguntar y anteriormente yo había ido y había visto personas pues como eran de Salvador y después cuando fui a preguntar para invitarlos, pues recibí negativas. Fui también a refugios de migrantes donde anteriormente hacían, ofrecían comidas y pues ahora ya no había tampoco porque existía el riesgo que fueran personas a la policía a llevárselos, ¿no? Entonces, pues se fue cerrando un poco el campo donde se podrían hacer las entrevistas hasta que lo puse en redes sociales y donde amigos me recomendaron con amigos de Centroamérica, entonces ahí ya se empezó a generar como un vínculo de confianza donde se podían crear ambientes seguros tanto para el entrevistado como pues para mí también, ¿verdad? Hice entrevistas en McAllen y en Reynosa, lo cual me permitió vivir, ahora sí que recibir de viva voz la experiencia que tuvieron en diferentes contextos, ya cuando habían cruzado, cuando estaban intentando cruzar, y pues bueno, ahí escuché sus voces, sus silencios, inclusive sus lágrimas y a lo que se expusieron y ya vi la migración ya no de una manera tan abstracta, sino como una experiencia humana y concreta. También me di cuenta que el español mexicano en esta zona pues es una variedad mayoritaria y que las personas centroamericanas ajustan su acento y léxico y pues realmente es una estrategia de seguridad y yo lo vi como una hegemonía lingüística invisibilizada, y lo usan como el lenguaje al cambiar, al tratar de hablar como el español mexicano, como una protección, y esto le servía para protegerse, inclusive en su transcurso para llegar de donde venían a México, bueno, ellos tenían que fingir hablar como usar el español mexicano, ¿no? Para sentirse un poco más seguros, pero bueno, al final ese acento no le salía, no era replicable. Entonces a mí me llevó, pues, tener una dimensión más ética y humana hacia el trabajo lingüístico y poder comprender más todos estos contextos de migración y cómo el lenguaje sirve como supervivencia. Y el lenguaje, pues, no solo es comunicación, identidad, refugio, supervivencia, y que el español centroamericano es rico y digno de estudio. Y bueno, me permitió ver también mis propios prejuicios lingüísticos y la manera hegemónica del español mexicano opera de forma invisible. También entendí la importancia de generar espacios seguros para que las personas puedan hablar sin miedo, sin corrección, sin presión y que saquen el vernáculo donde puedan expresar realmente su identidad. Y bueno, de todo las entrevistas que hicimos, hicimos un trabajo, mi compañera Lucy y yo, de todo esto, nos llevó a participar en Lazo, en un proyecto de testimonios de la esperanza, donde vimos como 3 ejes de ese trabajo: el ocultamiento lingüístico, el mimetismo y la resiliencia lingüística. Especialmente tuvimos contacto con personas de Honduras, que fueron mayormente las entrevistas, y mujeres. Entonces, pues bueno, esa es mi experiencia y agradezco mucho al doctor Hernández que nos comparta su conocimiento y su guía para hacer todo este trabajo. Pues muchas gracias.
Ok, entonces, gracias, Perla. Y obviamente, obviously, I understand that there are a lot of limitations in what we're doing, but I mean, we're doing our best. And what is next? A lot of work because we still have to transcribe. We have to um, put this into a digital format, but that's coming up in the following years. We're focusing right now on the collection process, but we'll keep you posted as far as what our um, how are we advancing with the project through different presentations in the coming years. And so, muchas gracias a todos. Thank you very much. I apologize because I should have been in the chat translating a little bit of what Perla was saying, but I only thought about it.
Está bien, tal vez hay preguntas sobre eso y podemos hacerlas en inglés y en español.
Right.
Por ejemplo, yo escribí una de mis preguntas en el chat en inglés y la pregunta
Okay, I
es,
didn't even see the chat.
¿como cuánto tiempo normalmente las entrevistas que han hecho duran?
Okay. Perla, ¿tú quieres tú empezar?
Ok, ok, el profesor nos dice que tiene que ser de 1 hora. Entonces tratamos de alargarlo lo más que se pueda, ¿verdad? Porque para generar ahora sí que confianza y pues poco a poco vayan verdaderamente expresándose como, porque el vernáculo lo sacan cuando se sienten en confianza, ¿no? Entonces sí tenemos que hacer una conversación larga.
So
Oye,
Perla was the question was how long are these interviews? And Perla says ideally, Perla says that I asked for 60 minutes, and yeah, but that's why I thought ideally they should last 60 minutes. But they last anywhere from 45 to 60 minutes. I think I always say at least 45. But I should say that this is the first time that I am asking undergraduates to work on interviewing, and that's a different challenge to me. If you have ever, I mean, I don't know if Richard or Damian have ever worked with undergraduate interviewers, but I mean, there's a lot more preparation needed, and sometimes the undergraduates will say, "I could only do 35 minutes. I hope that works." And yes, it works. But ideally, they should be from 45 to 60 minutes. Yes.
me pareció muy interesante que Perla dijo que el lenguaje lo usaban como protección because people you interviewed, Perla, some of them were afraid to be, I don't know, attacked. And maybe a way for them to be protected and safe was to try to imitate the Mexican Spanish dialect. So I thought that was very interesting. Me pareció muy interesante que mencionaras que los participantes se sentían más seguros si hablaban el español mexicano, tal vez.
Sí, sobre todo cuando van en el transcurso de México, de donde vienen de Centroamérica hacia acá para protegerse de la delincuencia, les dan inclusive guías para cómo hablar, que se aprendan el himno nacional de México, ¿no? Y que tengan eso. Y ya que cruzan, pues para adaptarse, como aquí pues mayormente es el español mexicano, tienen que cambiar su dialecto para poder conectar más rápido con la comunidad de aquí.
Yeah. So Lisa was talking about this idea that a lot of the transmigrantes and even the people who are the migrants here in the U.S. use this idea of converting to Mexican varieties rather than Central America for not be, for avoiding any type of repercussions for speaking their own varieties. And so one of the things that Bella was saying that was that people in Mexico usually try to imitate as much as possible or converge as much as possible to Mexican varieties, and they even go as far as learning the Mexican national anthem as they travel through Mexico. So that was I think that was presented in Lazo, right, Perla? That,
Sí. Ujú.
Y dice Saúl Moreno en el chat, excelente trabajo, me abre los ojos, la inmigración se vuelve más humana, qué buena frase. Y sí,
Gracias, Saúl.
¿alguien más tiene alguna pregunta?
Hi, Damián.
¿O comentario?
No, nada, great work. Estoy haciendo entrevistas con undergrads right now y sé, o sea, es un proceso de aprendizar y pues siempre les digo que hay dos cosas, hay el proceso y el producto y los dos son importantes, pero yeah, great work. Gracias, José Esteban, por llegar.
Gracias por los comentarios que nos dan ánimo, Damián. Y gracias a Perla, que ha hecho un gran trabajo, y a todos los estudiantes que me han ayudado con esto, obviamente.
Yo tengo otras preguntas que puedo hacer después. Si hay otros estudiantes que están usando esta misma metodología o investigación parecida, ¿los pueden contactar, profesor? Y si sí, ¿a dónde?
¿A mi correo o al de Perla?
¿Pueden poner los dos, por favor, en el chat y los podemos compartir?
Creo que, a ver, voy a dejar de compartir.
Sí. So if anyone has a question and you want to contact either Perla or Dr. Hernandez, feel free to email them. They're going to share their email with us in el chat. Okay.
Yeah, definitely feel free to contact me. I guess Perla would say the same. I know Perla is very accessible.
Muchas
And I
gracias.
really feel that we needed Erika Garcia here to do to have the undergraduate perspective on all of these, but yes.
Pues la invitaremos en otra ocasión cuando esté lista para presentarnos. Nos da gusto
Sí, sí, sí.
tenerla. Thank you everyone for being here. If you don't have any other questions, this is it for
Thank you,
today's
Richard.
series. Muchas gracias. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. Perla, Dr. Hernandez, muchas gracias. This was great. And I'm going to stop recording. Feel free to send any questions. Muchísimas gracias. And we'll have Spanish series in a couple of weeks again.